Well, ladies and gentlemen, we could see by the look on my screen that we are in the sea of green. And this is not just in the last hour or the last 24 hours. We are seeing green across the board now. The full year has now flipped green, as you guys can see. There is still some red, but I do suspect that everything else will wake up in a big way as we do kind of get closer towards, the end of the month and even into June. I told you guys that June, July is going to be a big time for the overall market. We have some pretty big announcements coming from the Fed in the middle of June. And then also, a lot of people are suspecting that we are going to see a lot more trade deals done with the US, which will definitely be a huge, huge deal. Now, if we actually look at the top 100 through the top 1,000, we are seeing some nice double digits here, but also, getting closer to the double digits in terms like the top 100, top 300. But outside of that, the market is looking good. Now, if you guys do remember, right, I made a post back in the middle of April. Elon, I do not want to promote my post. Please stop asking me to. We have here that it feels like the market is now stabilizing and coiling up. Everyone expects the market to continue to chop or even worse, drop from here. I think that we are about to witness this market heat back up in a big way. No one expected the market to heat up the way it did in November, the same way they do now. This next move will surprise a lot of people. Now, we do know that sidelined was a trending topic on X over the last 24 hours. I do suspect that there's a lot of people sidelined right now because they did not expect the market to heat up the way that it has so far. Now, the thing about this is that I don't think that it's done. I think that we do continue even higher from this point on, but I also made a post on the 22nd saying that it won't be long until everyone realizes how obvious it was that this market has bottomed. Feels like September all over again. Now we just wait. And this was on the 22nd. So if we're actually going off of these dates, okay, this is when I made both of these posts within this time frame here. For an example, this is the 17th, and then this is the 22nd. This was the big push to the upside. But the overall push here was almost 24% exact, and we're sitting at about $103,000. On the daily, this looks beautiful. We have a nice solid close on Bitcoin, the highest close that we've had since going all the way back to the end of January. And if we actually look at this thing on the weekly, if we can manage, we're about 2 days away from the weekly close. If we manage to close over 104.6K, it's clear skies to a new all-time high on Bitcoin. This is the craziest looking chart right now in crypto because of just how massive this V-wave recovery has been. So when we think about what's going on here, the markets are heating up, and across the board we're seeing green, especially around altcoins. Now I'm going to talk about that here in a second, but if we actually look at the overall market, look at the trending coins. Look at number one, Ethereum. Why? Ethereum was up almost 20% in the last 24 hours. In the last 7 days, it's up almost 30%. And now Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin in a big way. This is exactly what we want to see. This is very, very exciting because even though Bitcoin has been doing very good over the last couple of days, I mean, in the last 7 days, we're up 6.5%. In the last month, we're up almost 4% or so. This is awesome to see. But the fact that Ethereum is now starting to catch up is very good, including XRP, by the way. Like XRP in the last 7 days up about almost 8%. In the last 1 month, about 31.5%. This is very good as well. XRP, technically, if we're really kind of looking at the overall candles here, it's getting close to flipping the major, resistance around like $2.40 or so. We want to flip this $2.40 level and actually get a solid close on XRP above that. But besides that, the main focus here is Ethereum. And you might be saying, well, Nick, why is Ethereum, being focused on here? Well, number one, in the last 7 days, it's up almost 30%. In the last month, it's up almost 60%. The trading volume on Ethereum now nearing almost $4 billion, up over 145%. Actually, now it's at almost $55 billion. It's up over 150%. This is awesome because of what this means happening. Like this is the big focus, right? When we think about alt season, we have to focus on a few things. Number one, we let Bitcoin really take the wheel, right? It's in the driver's seat for a bit of time. Then at some point, Bitcoin says, all right, it's time for me to go take a nap. Let me go into the passenger seat, Ethereum take over. And then after that, Ethereum also has to take a nap, and then altcoins take over. That's our alt season. This is why I'm focused on Ethereum in a big way outside of XRP and outside of altcoins, because this is the phases of alt season. Right now, I do think that we are getting into phase 2. So we're not yet in alt season itself, but we're more so in the Ethereum part of the phases. So phase 2, in my opinion, is starting. And we have quite some time until phase 2 actually does end, because again, Ethereum still needs to break over that $4,000 plus level. If we actually look at the candle sticks here, we can see it's like $4,100. We want to get a big break over that, and then we want to actually clear the all-time highs from back in 2021. Until then, we're probably going to be stuck in the Ethereum phase for a little bit of time. But this is a very good sign, and it's actually a huge signal that alt season is coming. And altcoins like XRP are going to erupt in a big, big way. Now, the one thing that I am concerned about at this point is Bitcoin is currently trading at major resistance levels going back to December and going back to January. So this is where we do start to have some problems. So far, any resistance has been absolutely shattered on Bitcoin, which is very good to see. But this is where the most amount of resistance and the most amount of fight will actually be on Bitcoin to clear these levels. The main level is like 106.2K. So this is where we start to kind of get a little bit cautious, especially as we do really kind of see Bitcoin, having this massive surge to the upside. Because again, with this big surge and with this impulse, we most likely have a nice little sell-off. We have a retest. And now we have a new fair value gap on Bitcoin that we can kind of go off of on the daily, which is right around roughly, 97.7K, almost like 97.8K to about 102.3K. If we do fill this completely, I would not be mad at all. In fact, it would actually be healthy to kind of see something like this before we break to the upside. And we might actually just reject from the resistance level itself, like 106. So something like this would make sense. We don't know if this is going to be the exact overall price action that we do get, but I'll definitely keep a close eye on it over the next couple of days. But it would make sense for me to really kind of see that nice little sell-off and have that healthy price action, have like a floor form around this area. Very similar to, previous price action as well, where we have these nice little sell-offs, we build a floor, and then we continue higher. It's just healthy price action. So that's my overall view when it comes to Bitcoin, that we have to be a little bit cautious on right now, especially at a time where, fear and greed is now back to 70, which, by the way, this did have a massive surge on it over like the last month, as you guys can see. I mean, we went from extreme fear to 70 already around greed. And the only issue that I have here is that we are starting to see a pretty violent move across the board for crypto, including, of course, altcoins. That's why I've stated, as we do really kind of look at the sea of green, it's great to see, but we just have to be a little bit cautious here, especially as we do really kind of look at the top gainers and like the top, just looking at like the last 7 days in the top 500, we're now actually starting to see some violent moves, which, if we do kind of cool off a little bit before the next big swing to the upside, I wouldn't hate it. But again, we take it one day at a time and see what happens. Now, the big thing that everyone is focused on is, of course, the tariffs. We recently did get a post from Trump actually on Truth Social, and he said that an 80% tariff on China seems right. Okay, now he said this, but then he also said China should open up its market to the US. We don't know what's going to happen with, the China deal, because everyone's still waiting on that deal to be made. We just got the announcement of the UK deal. I wouldn't be surprised if India or Canada was next. Outside of that, China will most likely have to be over the summertime. So we might still be waiting on the China trade deal. for a few more weeks, which is totally fine with me, because I do think that this is going to be one of the largest catalysts around price action. Because the second that we do see a deal made with China, stocks are going to boom in a huge way, which is going to carry crypto with it. So this is something that I think everyone should be paying attention to, obviously, but we might have a little bit more time on this. Now, as we do really kind of think about all of this, let's talk about the banana zone. So recently, Julian from, and everyone knows Global Macro Investor at this point, but Julian from Global Macro Investor recently posted the banana zone, which Raoul Paul was talking about for a few months now, actually. I think he started talking about it back in, it was like early 2024, but this is what he's talking about with the banana zone, basically comparing it to 2011, 2012, 2014, 2016, 2019 into 2020, and then of course we have 2022 into 2025, essentially. Now the 2019 to 2020, that's all the way through 2021, obviously 2014 all the way through like 2017, 2018, and then 2011 all the way through like 2013, 2014. But we're looking at where we're at now. He's talking about this being the corrective phase 1 that we just got past. And then we should be continuing up all the way to about like 150K or so before the next correction phase. And then we should be ending around like $300,000 for Bitcoin. I think everyone's going to be wrong on their Bitcoin price predictions, including even myself. I don't know where Bitcoin is going to top. We take it one day at a time in terms of, really kind of gauging where retail emotions are. If we're seeing euphoric posts and everyone getting extremely happy, and you're starting to see like these kids posting TikTok videos talking about how you should be aping into this coin and that coin, and we're just starting to see the overhype of crypto growing. That's typically signs that the market is close to a topping point when it gets way too hot. So again, we don't really go off of prices specifically. We go off of how the emotions around the space are really kind of, what levels they're at. So again, in my opinion, we don't know where we're going to top. In my overall assessment of Bitcoin's previous cycles and going off of diminished returns, my idea of a Bitcoin top would be somewhere between like 140 to 160K. I know that sounds pretty low considering the fact that we're at 103K already, but you got to remember that this market has been running for quite some time. The overall topping point for crypto would technically be towards like the fall timeframe, the end of the year, which gives us only about 6-7 months to run. So within that time, we got to see how violent Bitcoin does move. It could definitely hit $200,000, but we got to really see. But also, if we're going off of the global M2 supply, we should be trading at about roughly 140, 160K already on Bitcoin, as you guys can see here from Julian as well. And we have lots of you have been asking for the updated global M2 versus the Bitcoin chart. Well, here it is. And yes, it tells the same story. We're going higher. And yeah, we definitely are going a lot higher here, in my opinion, as well. But we do have that slight little sell-off there, as you guys can see on the M2. And so far, we've been kind of trading with that, which kind of aligns with the idea that we might sell off a little bit back into like the mid 90K region, back testing major resistance, holding it as support, and then continuing even higher to 140, 160K, where I do think, is a perfect region for us to kind of top at. I think that that's a fair assessment. It would make a lot of sense if we're really kind of thinking about Bitcoin and we're just going back on like the 1 week. So far, Bitcoin off of the lows, you got to remember that Bitcoin is already up, over 564% to the actual tops of these candles, about 600 and almost 9%. If we're going to 160K, so let me actually just put 160K in here real quick, just to kind of show you guys how high that would be on Bitcoin and the total gain. It would be almost 1,000% gain compared to the move that we had back here in 2019 into like 2021. This would be about a 50% drop in terms of the total return during that overall cycle, which makes a lot of sense. And that's exactly why, I'm thinking 160K, because even if we go back in previous timeframes, like let's go back to the 2015 all the way into like the 2017 run, you could see the diminished returns being very realistic. I mean, this was a massive drop from almost a 12,000% push to, 2,000, almost 100, which is why I do think that, maybe a 50% drop here would be a fair assessment. Or even if we top somewhere around like 140K, which I know that to a lot of people that might seem, very low, that would be about like an 800% push or so. But again, that's why I'm thinking like 140, 160K. Again, we take it, through, the lens of emotions. The lens of emotions, in my opinion, is a better assessment of where the market is actually topped at rather than just price action. But, that's why I still think that diminished returns should be focused on with Bitcoin, because even though we're starting to see institutional focus, we're starting to see ETFs and things like that, it doesn't change the fact that Bitcoin has, every single time, cycle over cycle, returned less and less amounts of, gains. So just take it one day at a time. Don't feed into the noise. But the main thing that I'm looking at here with Bitcoin is I want it to go as high as possible simply because of Bitcoin dominance and because of altcoins. A lot of people are saying right now that Bitcoin dominance is topped out. We've heard this many times over every single time that we've had a red candle. So far, this does look pretty good compared to like where we were at back in 2021. I do think that we might have a little bit more steam left here for, Bitcoin dominance. I'm looking at about 66% potentially being the top for Bitcoin dominance, but, I do think that we're very close to the topping point here. And so far, the reason why altcoins have been having a massive run up is look at the daily drops here on Bitcoin dominance. If altcoins are going as crazy as they are right now off of, and this might look pretty violent to you guys, but this is only a change of about 3.15%. If altcoins are going, as crazy as they are now, just imagine when this thing drops, 30+%, or for an example, just to retest the December lows of 2024, this is a 16.5% drop. Altcoins would be going absolutely insane during that time. And if we're talking about retesting some of these additional lows, these are like this is a full like 30% drop here. Not even to retest the complete lows going back to May of 2021, which would be almost a 40% drop on Bitcoin dominance. So just imagine how insane this market is about to get if we did officially top out on Bitcoin dominance. And again, I'm more so looking at this thing on the macro. My assessment here is that we do top on this towards the end of June, just to kind of give it a little bit more of a conservative outlook, give us a little bit more time. Again, we could top today. It could already have been topped. We don't know. But the main thing here is that altcoins are going to move violently. This market's about to wake up in a much larger way. We might have a little bit of a sell-off. We might have a little bit of a correction before the next big wave. But for the most part, I'm looking at this market waking up in a much larger way. I think Ethereum is going to continue to outpace Bitcoin here. I think that we are in phase 2. I think phase 2 is starting. And from this point on, I think that altcoins are going to start to have a much better time in this market than they have had in just the last couple months. So we're definitely focused on the big targets here and the big signals around the market shifting from Bitcoin to Ethereum, and then from Ethereum we look at altcoins. So we don't have much more time left in this market. I suspect probably about, like I said, 6 to 7 months is my outlook. We'll see how everything's trading towards the end of this year, but for the most part, I'm very excited for what's about to hit this market in a big way. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.